So welcome back to our SIE videos for Series 7 Specialists. Again, if you have not bookmarked series7specialist.com, I suggest that you do so at this time because these YouTube videos are actually kind of transitional. What we're going to do is we're going to actually develop some videos for the SIE, a complete set, and then the top-off exams. For the top-offs, really the existing legacy Series 6 will have everything that you need in that. It's just not formatted just specifically for the top-off, but it's all there. But there is some additional information, like we said on that first video, on the SIE that you wouldn't get in the legacy Series 6. So we're covering some of that now. And what we've covered so far is that we've talked about options, what they are, that they're contracts. And of course, it's everything in the contract is determined by the four corners of the contract, is what they call it in the legal field. If it's on this contract, then it exists. If it's not in the contract, it doesn't exist. And so even though there's no physical contract that's drawn up for each one of these options, we need to see what all is on there. That's where we're going to go next. But remember that we have two different types of options. We have puts and we have calls. We also have two parties to an option transaction. We have the buyer, who has the right to act, to take a future action, and then the seller, or you might see the word writer. In the old days, before we automated these things and standardized them, people would literally write out the terms on a piece of paper. Okay, well, the person who did that was the creator of the option, because you had to create something in order to sell it. So that would be the seller, is also known as the writer. And so we've seen what you can do with them. You can either exercise them, you can get rid of them in the open market, in a closing transaction is what they call it, or you can allow it to expire. All right, if it's in the money at expiration, it's going to get exercised. Okay, if it's out of the money, then it's going to expire worthless. And so review those terms. If you're not familiar with those terms, then those are very, very important, because those are fundamental terms that you'll need to know. And again, I'm going to circle back around. We don't sell a whole lot on our website, but one of the things we do sell is the Option Talk book that we wrote, that basically puts class in a box. And if you're having any trouble at all on options and you're going to be taking the Series 7 top-off exam, this book is well worth every penny. I've had lots of folks say that they couldn't make heads or tails, and they read that and it just became really clear to them what to do. But more importantly than that, it became easy to get correct answers. I'm not so much about understanding as I am about getting correct answers. Okay, and the tools in there are very good, very simple, very repeatable. So anyway, right now though, let's go ahead and pick back up where we left off. We need to look at the parameters that define an option contract. In other words, what are the terms that are written on that paper, if there were a piece of paper? You have the underlying security. Okay, now by security, we have to really interpret that just a little bit loosely. We talk about stocks because it's so easy to talk about stock options. All right. But we also have these things where the underlying, quote, security, unquote, is an index. So like the S&P 500, the S&P 100, okay, those are all stock indices. And you can actually trade on the value of an index as if it were a stock. Very popular, okay? Interest rates, you have those as well. So you can trade on those. Whatever it is that underlies it, that's the underlying security. We'll call it a security, even though it can be an index or an interest rate. Now, the way that these things are settled, if they're exercised, and of course settlement is just how you button down all the loose ends and how you make sure that everyone is square at the tail end of the thing. If it's exercised, stock options are settled with the delivery of 100 shares of the underlying stock when it's exercised. Now, what happens though if there's a 2-for-1 split? Well, guess what? 2-for-1, I'll have 2 times the shares at 1/2 the price per share. And so the terms automatically adjust to where instead of 100, it's 200 shares. And instead of, and again, I'll pull a number out of the air, instead of $60 a share, I've got it at $30 a share. Well, I had $6,000 to start with of principal value, and I have $6,000 to end with of principal value. So stock splits and stock dividends. Now, cash dividends, do your homework. Figure out that this stock's going to pay a cash dividend, okay? And plan for it. But a stock dividend is a little bit unusual. And like I say, you make adjustments to allow for those stock splits and stock dividends. If you have an index option, like the S&P 100, the S&P 500, those are settled in cash upon exercise. And the way that they do it is that they take the dollar amount that that option is in the money. And you see how these terms are cumulative. Okay? We take the amount that it's in the money, and what we do is we apply a multiplier of 100 to that as if it were 100 shares. And the person the seller is going to deliver to the buyer that value in terms of dollars. Okay? You probably on the SIE won't have too many questions having to do with that. Be aware that indexes and also interest rate options have cash settlements. And really, the more likely question is, if you have an option that has a cash settlement, when can the buyer exercise the option? It's only at the time of expiration, because all of the options that are cash settled, again, there's one little exception, you won't see it on the SIE. But all the options that are cash settled, those are European exercise, which expiration and European both start with E, our little reminder that we had on the last video. Okay, so like I say, they're only exercisable at the time of expiration. We've talked about the type of the option. So we have the underlying security, we have the XYZ stock or whatever index or interest rate. We have, the second thing is the type of option. So it's a call option or it's a put option. Type is an official term for the two option types that are there. It's very descriptive. So you have calls and you have puts. That's another parameter. The next is the expiration date, okay? And it's monthly on the third Friday is when these things expire. And especially for your lower volume options, they're going to expire on the third Friday of each month. If Friday is a holiday, it'll be the Thursday, all right? Then there are also weekly expirations for the more actively traded, and the weeklies obviously are going to be every Friday, so that it gives the buyers and the sellers more of a choice as to how far out in time they want to go. If at the point of expiration an option is in the money, then there's an automatic exercise on that thing, so you really don't have to do anything. It does it for you. It assumes that you want to preserve your capital and do the exercise. So there's an automatic exercise for options that are in the money at the time of expiration. But if it's a stock option, and again, you buy it today, you want to exercise it next week, there's 3 more months to go to expiration, fine, you can do it if it's an American style exercise, because American and any time both start with A. Okay, but there's your expiration date. And then the strike or exercise price that we talked about is the next parameter of it. You have to specify what the exercise price is going to be, what the strike price is going to be. And so then the premium also, which is determined by market value or market forces, supply and demand. Now, we want to take just a little bit of time to get just a little bit of familiarity with the way that a premium is structured. And again, and I use that word structure because we need to understand what goes into a premium in general. Now, this premium on this option, whatever the option it is may be, the marketplace is going to determine whether that's going to be a lot or a little bit. Okay? Now, yeah, there are some things that affect that, but basically the marketplace is going to determine on literally trade by trade just how much that option is worth. So it's going to determine the actual amount of the premium. But a premium is comprised of 2 parts and 2 parts only. Okay? What you have is that you have the intrinsic or built-in, intrinsic just means built-in, value. Now this is most easily understood with call options, and so I really don't want to just belabor the point, so let's use a call option. Let's say that this call option, let's look at the parameters, okay? We've already seen one of the parameters, okay? It's a call option. That's the type. It's on XYZ stock, okay? It is a, it's a March expiration. Doesn't really matter, they're just illustrating. So it's the third Friday in March. I'm going to assume it's not a weekly. We don't need to get that detailed, okay? And then the next thing is we need to know the exerciser strike price. And it's a $40 strike price, okay? So it's an XYZ March 40 call. That's what we do. It just goes through those 4 parameters. But what's the premium going to be? Well, let's figure it out. Let's say that XYZ right now is at $43. Well, now let's figure this one out, okay? The call option gives the buyer the ability to call that stock into his own portfolio or to buy that stock at a price of 40. If that same person were to go out in the open marketplace, they'd have to pay 43. There's $3 of built-in or intrinsic value. This thing's going to be worth at least $3. Okay, so let's just go ahead and I'll just go ahead and mark it up with the values that we're talking about here. Okay, so that's going to be at least $3. Now, let's say that it's just the first part of December. Well, we have essentially 4 months, okay, before March rolls around. Not exactly, it's close enough for our purposes. So what we're going to do is that the marketplace is going to assign a certain amount of time value. Now, how does the marketplace assess the time value? Well, the biggest one is how much time's left. If it were the second week in March, there wouldn't be a whole lot of time value. But we said it was the first week in December. And therefore, there's just almost 4 months of time value. More time value. And so what happens with this is that just all factors totally constant. What happens is that the time value deteriorates if you graph it out. It does kind of like this, where it's slowly, and then as the expiration date approaches, it decays very rapidly. So it just falls off the edge there as the time value approaches. And finally, at the time of expiration, that third Friday in March, there is none. Okay? And so that's the one thing. The second thing is, I don't care if you want it to go up or down. If you have a stock that historically has done this, it's less likely that you're going to get from point A to point B than you are with a stock that has historically done this. You've got a better chance of getting there, wherever there is, if your stock has higher volatility. So the higher volatility, the higher the time value. But again, the marketplace is going to determine that on a trade-by-trade basis. Now let's go one other thing, go back over here to the intrinsic value, and let's say that, in fact, let me go ahead and pick up a different color so we'll know. Then instead of 43, that XYZ is trading at 39. Well, now wait a minute. My contract gives me the right to go out and pay 40 good hard-earned US dollars for that stock. But I could go straight to the marketplace and pick it up for 39. Why would I want to exercise my option? I wouldn't. It's out of the money. There's no advantage to the buyer of the option to do that. Now, intrinsic value, we said when it was $3 in the money, had $3 of intrinsic value. It's just $5 would be $5 intrinsic. Whatever it's in the money, that's how much built-in value there is. But the thing is that intrinsic value never goes negative. It only goes to 0. Okay? And so now that we have the time value and the intrinsic value, the sum of those two are going to be the entire premium. or the amount that's played in the market, paid for or received if I'm a seller for that option contract in the marketplace. So you have the time value, which again the marketplace is going to determine. The intrinsic value, which you can calculate, and it can never go below zero. But the sum of those two is going to be your entire premium that you pay for the option contract itself. Okay? All right, so let's see. What we did was we've looked now at the parameters that define an option contract. Let's look at the positions and the strategies. The terms that we have to be familiar with include long and short. Long quite simply means I got it. Short quite simply means I didn't have it, but I sold it anyway. So I've got a negative quantity. Okay? Long is a positive quantity. Short is a negative quantity. And so we can be either long or short. All right, so long, you own the contract and you're going to choose to act. You bought it. So with a call option, we've seen this already. You can choose to buy the stock. Okay? If it's in the money, and we talked about that automatic exercise for you. Let's draw that little grid back up here again. Okay? Because we also want to look at the strategies that are involved with these options. And again, you don't need to know just gory detail for the SIE, or for that matter for the Series 6. Series 7, you'll need to know all those strategies. You'll need to know maximum gains, maximum losses, break-even points. You'll need to put them together in spread straddles, combinations, together with all that stuff, okay? We want to keep it pretty simple here. So let's look at our grid again. There we go. We said that there were two types. There are calls and there are puts. And there are two parties. You have your buyer and you have your seller. Now we said that if you buy and you have a positive quantity, then you are long. If you create and sell from scratch and you had nothing to start with, you wind up with a negative quantity, you're short. Okay? Now, again, long and short don't have anything to do with either a call or a put. Because think of if you buy a car. I mean, you can buy a Ford and you're long a Ford. You can buy a Chevy, you're long a Chevy. Okay? You can sell your next door neighbor's car. Don't try this, okay? It's not a good idea. The police kind of frown on it. But if you were to sell your neighbor's Ford, you'd be short a Ford. If you were to sell your neighbor's Chevy, you'd be short a Chevy. So it doesn't matter what it is that you're buying or selling. If you wind up with a positive quantity, you're long. If you wind up with a negative quantity, you're short. So let's just take these one at a time. I put good money out there to buy a call option, which enables me to call that stock into my portfolio at or before a certain time at a fixed price. Now there's only one reason why I'd buy stock. Just one. I think the darn thing's going to go up. I think it's going to make me money. Okay? There's no reason to buy a stock that, oh, these people specialize in payphones. Wait a minute, when was the last time you used a payphone? Yeah, so there's no reason to buy a company that has no future. So you buy it because you think it's going to go up. In other words, you are bullish. And aggressively so. All right. The put option. You spend good money in order to enable yourself, if you're right here, to take stock and put it into somebody else's portfolio. All right? There's only one reason that you would want to be able to get something that you own and force somebody else to buy it. And that's just you think that there's a good probability it's going to go down. In other words, you're bearish. Okay? There we go. Now what we're seeing, if you look at this thing, you're noticing that these sides have opposite characteristics, no matter what we're talking about. The one guy's long, the other guy's short. The one guy pays money, the other guy gets money. The one guy has the right to exercise, the other guy gets exercised against. Okay, so like I say, there's no difference here, because the thing is that that you can you've got, when you're short, you're creating it or you're writing it. If this guy's bullish, that guy is, yeah, not as bearish as this guy. Okay, this is neutral to bearish. And likewise, this then will be the opposite of this fellow, neutral to bullish. And believe it or not, this idea of neutral to is best illustrated by using puts. Because if this guy sells a put option, let's say that you bought the put option, but I sold it to you. On the initial transaction, I got money, the premium. Now, if it's exercised, what's going to happen is that you're going to say, I have some XYZ stock. Dan, you are obligated to buy it from me because I'm going to put it into your portfolio. Well, the reason I sold this thing in the first place was that I thought, you know, if XYZ goes down to 50, well, I'd buy it. Oh, wait. There's somebody willing to pay me 85 cents a share, $1.25, $3 a share, I don't know. Look at the marketplace and see what it's assigning to that put option. They're willing to pay me that money. So if it was $1.50 and it's a $50 strike, effectively I'm going to buy it at $48.50. Because I'm going to have to pay you $50, but you gave me about $50 of it to start with. Now, the thing about it is, if it does go up some and goes out of the money and it just expires, I'm standing there that whole time. I'll buy it from you. I'm here. I'm ready, willing, and able to buy it from you. Call me. Just give me a buzz anytime. I'll buy it from you. I'll buy it from you. And then somebody taps me on the shoulder and said, Dan, that option expired, worthless. Oh, okay. I don't have any more obligation. That was easy. Guess what I've still got in my pocket? That $1.50, that $2, whatever it was that you paid me in premium way back when. So see, if it goes up, cool. If it goes down a little bit, well, hey, guess what? I'm bullish long term. And so I'll buy it because I was planning on buying it anyway if it did a pullback. So like I say, this one is easiest to explain. There's a little bit more convoluted up here, but we won't worry about that. Just remember that you have the opposite positions with the opposite actions on the contract itself. Okay, now why would you do that? Okay, in the first place, the first is speculation. Okay, I think that XYZ is going to go from 40 to 140. Well, I'm right there. Okay, so speculation. That's why you'd buy an option. I think XYZ is going to go from 40 to nothing. Speculation. Okay. The second reason is that you can lock in a purchase price or a sale price. For some time in the future. I may want to buy XYZ, but I don't have the money right now. But my Uncle Fred has told me that he's going to give me some money come April. Well, I can buy some April options. If it goes from 40 to 80, it doesn't matter. I've got the $4,000. I can buy it then, okay? Or by the same token, you can lock in a sale price for yourself. Okay, I really don't like XYZ, but Uncle Fred's estate has some. I want to lock in a sale price of 40. I might want to buy a put. And that way, if it does go down, who cares? I'll sell it at 40 once it gets through probate and once I get the actual stock. So I can lock in a purchase or a sale price, and then hedging or protecting yourself against undesirable price movements. So hedging is basically putting an insurance policy into place. You know, if you stop and think about your car insurance, You put a little bit of money in every month, every 6 months, whenever. Okay? And what happens? You don't get anything back unless something happens that hurts you. Like you have a wreck and your car is totaled, and hopefully, thank goodness, you're okay, everybody's okay. But the car is a mangled piece of steel that's just a mess. Okay? What happens then? Why? Because of the fact that you have protected yourself, you bought yourself something that's going to pay off if the worst case scenario develops, that insurance agent says, here's a check for a brand new car. Ah, cool. I profited from what hurt me. So if this allows you to profit on a bullish situation, then if you're bearish on a stock and you are short the stock, you've borrowed it from someone else and you've sold it and you have a negative quantity, you can protect yourself against an adverse market move there. Easier to understand is right down here. You own XYZ and you're thinking, you know, they could get approved on this new drug, they might not. If they get approved, going to go straight up. If they don't, going to go straight in the tubes, you know, and downhill. So if the best happens, cool, because I own the stock. But I'll spend a little bit of money and protect myself against that bearish movement, okay, that downside movement, by locking in a sale price. I hope I don't have to use it. But that's another thing we can do, is hedging. Okay, so that's why we would go long on an option. If we go short, again, we create or write the option. We sell it. We have a negative quantity in that option. With a call, what happens is that we have to deliver to this guy that stock once this guy decides to exercise. All right. Now, the thing is that here are two very important terms. The one is covered. The other is uncovered or naked. If I'm covered, then I own the stock, or I have myself some way to contractually obtain the stock. And basically it's a matter of, here's your stock, where's my money? Okay? So if you're covered, but you don't have to own the stock in order to sell the option against it. That's uncovered or naked. Okay, and in that case, what you have to do is that you have to somehow obtain the stock in order to deliver it over here. Now, markets can be cruel, and if the stock has gone from 40 to 140, guess what you're doing? You're going out and buying the stock at 140 bucks just to deliver it over here for 40, because that's what your contract says. So if you're uncovered a call, if you're short a call and you're not covered, you're naked on it, you have unlimited risk potential. Unlimited risk potential. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. All right, with a put, you've got to purchase the stock. If it's delivered to you, that's really, you have like cash covered puts, where if I reserve enough cash, I can't just go out and buy stuff. Or if I have enough margin power, enough buying power in my account, that I have to maintain enough buying power in order to actually purchase the stock if it's exercised against me. Okay, so in any event, like I say, you can do that for speculation, just like you can over on the long side. You can potentially lock in a satisfactory sale price here, or purchase price over here. Because remember, you're selling the stock over here, you're purchasing it over there. So you can lock in a potential sale or purchase price if you're exercised against. But one of the things we talked about, remember what I had in my pocket in our little example. I got money on day one. Actually day two, but that's close enough, okay? The thing is, you can also use your short side to produce income. So I'm going to go ahead and put speculation over here. But likewise, you can get income and lock in a price, but put that with a question mark, because remember, this guy is active, these guys are passive, these guys make the decisions. those guys are exercised against. Okay, so that's the reasons why you would do that, and why you would buy or write an option contract. All right, and then just kind of wrap up the information on the options. We also have the options